My father worked in the construction industry, largely self-employed. My mom went back to work when I was in 4th grade. I was the youngest of 4 and the only girl. She went to work as a bank teller and then became a loan officer.
Tell us about high school and college.
I couldn't wait to get out of high school. I started college at the community college nearby and decided it would be more fun to have a nice car and lots of clothing. So I quit. And I worked as a secretary. And at some point decided I really need to go back to school because I want to do what they're doing. Then I went to Suffolk Community College and was secretary to the director of security, which was just right up my alley because I was so interested in anything to do with crime.
How did you select the school that you went to after Suffolk?
I love Washington, D.C., so I chose George Washington University. I went there in 1983 after I got my associate's degree. I was a part-timer. I worked full-time as a legal secretary. I was fascinated because when I went to the employment agency, both the person at the employment agency and then the office manager at the law firm told me that the vacancy was as secretary for a lady lawyer, and that lady lawyers were really difficult to work for. And instead of being difficult, she turned out to be an inspiration for me. The more I wanted to learn, the more she taught me. And then my father was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. My parents had already retired to Florida, and the prognosis was not good. And my father said, why don't you just come home and you can go to school full time. I transferred to the University of Florida. By that time, I was 27. I got a great education for the last 40 credits or so. My father passed away just before I got my bachelor's degree. I was the first in my family to complete college and get an undergraduate degree. And then I wound up coming to Connecticut, and that's where I went to law school.
How old were you when you started law school?
I was 29.
And is that, at the University of Bridgeport at the time, was that the mean age?
No. I was one of those known as a student over the traditional age.
And despite what you might not have been pleased with the curriculum on the first year, how did the second year's curriculum?
Oh, I loved it.
And why was that?
I absolutely loved it. I took equal protection, First Amendment, loved First Amendment. Every constitutional law class I could take, criminal procedure, investigative and adjudicative, one each semester. I was so hooked. I was just so into it.
And as you moved through law school, did you also have jobs during the summer?
In December of the first semester of my second year, I found you and you interviewed me for a summer position. I worked for you that second summer, and you were kind enough to extend my summer job through the fall semester. I learned to check the statutes, check the case law. I would say I started blossoming from the law student into the person who was soon to become an attorney.
At what point did you get your first job in the legal profession?
The Monday after the bar exam. When I stopped working in your office the first semester of my third year of law school, I began in the second semester a 7-credit, 21-hour per week internship in the Danbury State's Attorney's Office. When Walter Flanagan, the former Danbury State's Attorney, interviewed me, he said, trial law is like football. Women can play tennis, but trial law is like football. And I said, well, I've always wanted to be a quarterback. It was a little too facetious, and I left the office thinking, oh, I just squelched my entire career goal. He will never accept me. And then I learned that Walter liked my feistiness and had selected me to be the intern. So I interned there, and it was everything I had hoped for and more. Walter Flanagan gave me every opportunity. I tried a lot of motor vehicle infraction cases.
As a law student?
As a law student. It was a great no-risk atmosphere.
So how did that develop into a full-time job?
While I was studying for the bar exam, then State's Attorney Walter Flanagan called to tell me that he had an opportunity to hire an intern. So I started the Monday after the bar exam. I was sworn in December of '89, did 2 jury trials on my own, interviewed in January of '90 for a permanent full-time prosecutor's position in Danbury, and the state imposed a hiring freeze on prosecutorial positions. I was devastated. I was overwhelmed, thinking I've got, about $80,000 in law school loans, and I was able to get a position as a temporary assistant clerk in the Waterbury Superior Court. And what happened was that a few weeks into it, one of your associates happened to come in to the Waterbury clerk's office. And as I recall it, it was either that night or the next day that you called me and offered me the opportunity to return to your firm. And in May of '90 became an associate. And what do you know, in August, Walter Flanagan, then Danbury State's attorney, called to tell me the hiring freeze had been lifted. And he was submitting my name to the Criminal Justice Commission. So I appeared before the commission September 19th of 1990, got the call that night, and was told I was going to be a deputy assistant state's attorney, entry-level prosecutor in Danbury.
What did your work consist of at the beginning?
I reviewed search and arrest warrants. I reviewed applications determining whether there was probable cause. I handled criminal dockets. I second-seated more experienced prosecutors on trials.
For the period of time that you were the only woman prosecutor in the office, what, if any, reaction did you have from defense lawyers or those defendants who were self-represented?
The self-represented defendants would frequently come into a conference room where there were 2 tables, 2 prosecutors, a man and me. And there would be a line, and I would say, next, and a defendant would not just frequently, routinely say, no, I'm waiting to talk to the prosecutor. And I can't help but say I took a little joy in saying, come here, you are. They just did not think that a woman should be a prosecutor.
Tell me about 2001 when you decide that you want to move up in the world, take advantage of promotions, and geographically move.
I never thought I would get it, but the more I prepared for the interview, the more I wanted to be state's attorney in Windham.
And you ultimately got the job.
That day.
For how long did you serve in that role in Windham?
15 years, and I retired August 1st.
Did the role of being a lawyer change for you during the process?
Totally.
In what way?
I started out thinking I had to wear a suit such as the one you are wearing, except with a skirt, but buttoned up, and that I had to be really fiery and convince the world that I was a tough prosecutor, not a girl. And I so mellowed and went to being me and being comfortable being me.
What is the role that you played that was the most important role?
Without a doubt, forming the Windham State's Attorney's work family. I get all choked up. We really formed a cohesive group of people, went from strangers to a team, to a family of people who care about each other.
Being a prosecutor meet the expectations you had?
It far exceeded my expectations. I reached the pinnacle of my career, and it was the best career I ever could have hoped for.